Hello, everyone. Today's lesson, The Age of Reason, involves literary works from the Rationalists, the Deists, and Revolutionary wartime authors. Take a few seconds to get out something to write on and something to write with. Remember, this is an open notes quiz at the end, so you want to take a lot of notes so you do well. Good luck. What is rationalism? There was a change in the beliefs away from the Puritans who believed that fate was predetermined and there was nothing they could do to change their stations in life, to a place in which people wanted to acknowledge that their actions actually do play a role in their fate. Rationalists believed that there is only one truth in life. All human beings are equal and can strive to be perfect. Everyone can improve themselves. And rationalists also had a theory on God. They believe that God has power, but that he does not have all power and knowledge. Humans have more control over their life than God. Remember, what is going on in society during different time periods is reflected in what is being written during the different time periods. For instance, the rationalists are attempting to establish that God exists based on rationality and reasoning instead of the Puritan beliefs that just believed he existed because someone told them that he does. Education is becoming more valued. Learning is moving away from the church and into centers of knowledge. Think colleges and libraries in this instance. And science begins to take center stage. Things that had once been explained or credited to either God or the devil were beginning to be explained through science. During this period, we have the growth of theories in science such as gravity, physics, and medicine. So what were the results of rationalism? Deism came to life out of rationalism, and it was an attempt to connect science and religion to make them agree with each other. Deists accept the authority of human reason and reject miracles, the Trinity, and the authority of the Bible. Some interesting beliefs of deists are that they accept the teachings of Christ, but they don't think he is divine. They did not believe that Jesus was God's son because his conception would have been a miracle, and they don't believe in miracles. Deists also believe that a private relationship is more important than attendance at public services. This might have helped John Proctor back in the Crucible days, huh? This way of thinking was confined to a small number of highly educated, articulate individuals. We'll talk about one of those very famous ones in just a few moments. Not everyone thought that this was the way to follow, but some of their beliefs did reach the masses and are still with us today. What I'd like you to do now is get out a piece of on your note paper, plot out a little place where you can take and reflect on some of the things that I've just talked about. Reflect on what views in our society you can connect to Puritanism and what values you can connect to rationalism. What are the values our country holds dear? Where do those values come from? What role do we play in our fate? And what roles do values and fate play in the Declaration of Independence as well as our approach to government? Remember, I talked about the famous deist that we would discuss, and that's Benjamin Franklin, who was born to Puritan parents. He kept all of his Puritan faith, but he also adopted some deist views and values, like the personal relationship with God. He didn't believe you had to go to church in order to have a relationship with God. He also believed that life should be dedicated to the pursuit of happiness, as did the Puritans, but here's where it differs. His type of happiness comes from getting along with others. The Puritans believed that the way to happiness is to get to heaven, so obviously their definitions drastically differ. On the bottom you see two texts written by Benjamin Franklin. You have on the right what we'll go to next, which is the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin, and on the left, Poor Richard's Almanac. The autobiography contains a listing of 13 virtues that are based on Puritan teachings. Here's a list of all 13 of these virtues. You'll want to know what they are. Take a moment and look at these and see which ones you do well and which ones you would need to work on, because that's exactly what Benjamin Franklin did. He made a list, and he listed the 13 virtues on the left, and across the top of the right, he would list the days of the week. And he made it his mission to check off each of these 13 virtues every single day. Almanacs were one of the earliest types of publication and were the forerunners of today's magazines. Colonial almanacs provided a wide variety of content that included puzzles, recipes, articles, humors, and common sense aphorisms. In Poor Richard's Almanac, Benjamin Franklin provides numerous witty sayings or words to live by. We have a few up here for us to look at. A penny saved is a penny earned. Love thy neighbor, yet don't pull down your hedge. A rolling stone gathers no moss. And half a truth is often a great lie. Let's take a look at the Declaration of Independence. In 1776, the Second Continental Congress created a committee to draft a statement declaring independence from Britain. Thomas Jefferson did most of the writing. Enough of Jefferson's drafts of a Declaration of Independence survive to show that he was a painstaking writer whose constant revisions give the document its magnificent, stately rhythm. Some of Jefferson's ideas about independence were not new. He studied John Locke's theory of natural law. According to Locke, people are by nature free, equal, and independent. Following his lead, Jefferson stressed that the American Revolution was a struggle for the basic rights of all. 4 other writers worked with Jefferson on the draft of the Declaration that was submitted to Congress: John Adams of Massachusetts, Roger Sherman of Connecticut, Robert Livingston of New York, and Benjamin Franklin of Pennsylvania. Few changes were made by these other writers, but Congress insisted on major alterations. Jefferson was upset by what he called mutilations of his document. Our next author is Thomas Paine, who wrote the Crisis Pamphlets. In 1776, Thomas Paine joined the Continental Army as it retreated across New Jersey to Philadelphia. The exhausted and demoralized army was heavily outnumbered by the enemy. As he traveled with the army, Paine began writing a series of 16 pamphlets called The American Crisis, commenting on the war and urging Americans not to give up the fight. The first of these pamphlets was read to General George Washington's troops in December 1776, a few days before the army recrossed the fated Delaware River to attack the British-held city of Trenton, New Jersey. Our next author, Phyllis Wheatley, was a devout Christian, and she began writing religious verse at the young age of 13. Her first published poem, An Elegy to a Well-Known Minister, was so well received that it led to the publication of a volume of poetry by the young woman. Urged by her owners, Wheatley toured England, and when she returned, the family freed her from enslavement. Her poetry imitates the style and the poetry of her time. She uses a Latin vocabulary, inversion, and elevated diction. Let's take a look at her poem here. From the To Right Honorable William Earl of Dartmouth, if you scroll down to the lines that start with what pangs excruciating must molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. Towards the bottom of the poem, what pangs excruciating must molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. This is an example of inversion where the order of the sentence is backwards over the way we speak today, and this was a common trait found in poetry of this time period. Finally, we're going to leave with Patrick Henry, the very famous speech giver. Patrick Henry was one of the leaders of the growing opposition to British rule in the American colonies. This speech to the Second Virginia Convention was delivered in 1775 in Richmond, Virginia. This speech firmly established Henry's reputation among his contemporaries and among future generations as a forceful and memorable proponent of liberty, so memorable that we all know that line of "Give me liberty or give me death." So why were the colonists upset? Well, the 7-Year War had just ended with France in the mid-18th century, and that strained Britain's treasury. Consequently, the British Parliament passed a series of taxes on its colonies designed to replenish Britain's treasury. American colonists protested these taxes, and thousands of British troops were sent to Boston to keep the peace. That's all we have for our introduction to the Age of Reason. I hope you enjoyed learning about the rationalists, the deists, and our revolutionary authors. Get ready to take a quiz, and good luck!